Welcome to Marriage by Design with committed spouses, parents, and visionaries, Pastor and co-pastor Narcissus. A show about helping you experience God's design for your marriage.
Welcome to Marriage by Design. My name is Pastor Mark Narcissus. I'm here in the set with my lovely wife.
I'm co-pastor Tara Narcissus and excited to be here for our second show, Marriage by Design. We got a great show planned for you guys tonight, so get ready, get ready.
Yes, I hope you enjoyed the last show. The last show was a bomb. I mean, we talked so much that, when we got home, we just kind of set to the side because we empty ourselves out. But how many of you know that we already refilled ourselves again for tonight? So tonight we have a great topic for you. We'll be talking about communication in marriage. Okay. So again, I'm always going to remind you about the show. The name of the show is Marriage by Design. So that means in your marriage, are you designing your marriage? Have you thought about designing your marriage? Because even if you already married or you about to get married, okay, you could always redesign. If you're already married, you could always redesign your marriage. Okay. And if you are about to get married, then it's time for you tonight to really take some notes and really design your marriage for success.
Yeah. So communication, like you said, it is very important. It's a topic that I think we'll never actually get to the bottom of. When you're communicating with your spouse, you really have to get to learn their style and what their language is. So it is no one cookie cutter answer to this. We're going to dive deep into that and kind of figure out what are the things that we need to take notice of and how we can put that at the forefront so that we can have a successful marriage.
Okay, as you guys know through the introduction of the program that we are pastors, right? So we pastors, so I pastor a church and my lovely wife helped me co-pastor this church. So everything that we do is biblically based. Okay. So when we talk about communication is very important. So we're going to take it in the biblically kind of way and then dive into a worldview of what people think and show you the differences and how you could be successful in your marriage. Okay. So now we talk about communication. So the question tonight is, what is communication? What is communication? So we're going to dive into that, explain it briefly to you guys, both in a world way and a biblical way, so we could get you focused to go on. So first, what is communication?
Well, technically, communication is when you're trying to talk to someone and get your point across. So, I mean, you want them to understand you and you want to convey a message and you want them to be able to respond back to what you're saying. So that's what communication is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So again, communication, we've been married 28 years, so we have a lot of communication blunders that we can help you with tonight. Communication. So a lot of you guys think communication. I remember first day when we first got married. One of the issues that we faced was communicating with each other.
Right.
Okay, because we think because you open your mouth
Right.
and say something that you communicated.
Right. But we quickly found out that was not the case. Correct? So one thing I know you used to say to me in the early years is that, you would always say I didn't know how to talk to you because you felt like I was just talking at you, like just giving you orders, and that I really wasn't, conveying my point properly. Mm-hmm. Or I won't say properly. It's just the way in which you were used to receiving communication. And so what comes into that is because we came from two different places, right? I came from a family structure. You came from a family structure. And so how you all communicated together was different from how I was used to communicating with my family.
Right.
So communication is not just words.
Right. So I'm glad you say that because a lot of people out there, they're married or they're getting ready to get married, and they don't understand what the key you just said. We came from two different family structures. Mm-hmm. So that means, so what I'm getting from that is like communication have to be taught
Okay. Yeah.
in the family.
Mhm.
So I came from a family background where my father really didn't teach me how to communicate. See, nobody taught me how to communicate. Okay. So now, if you're not taught, it's not all of a sudden now you have to communicate. So you thinking communication is just yes, no, that's it. But communication involves more than a yes or no answer.
Right.
You see, so I never received that. So hence now we got married. Now it's you and I. You say, did you do the laundry? Yes.
Or better still, I would say, did you do the laundry? And then you would walk away.
You see.
But I mean, you would say, yeah, I did it. You saw it. So you would just like think because I saw the laundry was done, or, that would be the answer. It didn't require a verbal response.
Right, right. See that, and that's the issue. So there's someone out there that's watching us that maybe you're married already, or you're getting ready to get married, and because think about this now, when you dating, or the communication skill set doesn't really come out yet. Is when you get to that place where it's you two in the wall. Now you're gonna have to learn how to communicate, and then so it's not just a yes or a no. It's communication through your body language. You see, so I think that in a relationship throughout our 28 years, we have not mastered, but we have learned how to communicate with each other, and hence the things that we used to struggle with in our early days of marriage. Now we laugh at because we don't even. It's not even an issue. Okay, so what do you think about communication? Different type of communication, body languages, or words, or what do you think?
I think, like you said, they play a major role, in how you're going to express your point. I think it's important if you look at it from a standpoint that you're not trying to be right, or you're not trying to be like overpower your spouse, but you're trying to accomplish a goal. You're trying to accomplish a point together, so that when you are, communicating with one another, you're able to receive it and you don't feel attacked, or like you have to show your agenda outside of mine, but we feel comfortable with one another. And so that is a learned behavior. So you don't know that until you're like actually spending time with the person, and then you begin to see what makes them tick, what's gonna make them happy, what's gonna make them upset, and then you learn those ways, and then you take notes, and then that's how you start communicating.
Right. So we talk about that. So remember now, I wasn't taught how to communicate, and so even though we dated like 7 years, but when we actually got married, we still didn't know each other.
Yeah, you could find that out, because now that's a whole nother territory, because we're now living together. So that's a whole nother situation.
Right. So now we're in the space together. We're living together. Okay, I have to learn how to communicate with you, but then I'm not comfortable communicating with you, even though through the 7 years that we thought we were communicating, we talk about stuff, but we really didn't have a communication style,
right,
for this marriage. So what's wind up happening is, so now I'm communicating outside with my mom about what I should be communicating with you. That and hence now make the marriage a little bit tougher, because now I'm communicating the feelings that I have, or the things that we're going through, learning each other, instead of communicating it to I'm communicating to my mom.
Right.
So I think that that's something that we need to talk about because a lot of people out there been married,
Right.
doing the same thing. Some maybe not talking to their mom, maybe they're talking to their friends. You know, maybe they're talking to their cousins, their homeboys, and maybe they're talking to people that's not even married
Right.
and trying to get advice from them. So that makes that communication even tougher. So how do we help somebody out there that's already in a situation like that?
I think you said a key thing when you said that even though we were like we knew each other for 7 years, so we think like, hey, I know exactly what she would want, or I know exactly what you would want. But then once you get married, and now you have to start to communicate about different things, right? You said that you would communicate to your mom, right? And I know that that's a point of contention for lots of married couples out here because it was for me. But I had to get to understand this is what I know you did because you felt comfortable that nurturing environment that you had with your mom, and you always grew up talking to her and letting her know what's on your mind when you felt upset, when you felt hurt. And then now all of a sudden you have a new person in me who's your spouse, and I'm expecting you to do those things with me and not do it with your mom,
Right.
So that's what brought about the area of contention. But when I began to understand that, I was able to see, that that's not a bad thing necessarily. I just had to see what were the things you found in her that allowed you to be honest and vulnerable, and then I had to try to mimic those things. And then that's when we started, better communicating with one another.
Right. Yeah, it's good. So now, the thing that we need to ask is this: a lot of people are married, because the thing is with marriage, you don't have a book.
Right.
You don't have a book that says this is the book about marriage. This is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
There's not an ABC and steps. So now you get married, okay, now we husband and wife. There's things that we're supposed to do. But so now, how do you know why is communication important between spouses?
So communication is important between spouses because we always have to, if we're not communicating with one another, then we could be fostering a bad relationship. And that I say, if we're not communicating, then somebody's communicating with us. And like you said, it's outside sources, right? And it's those outside sources that don't need to be having a say-so in what's going on between you and I, because everyone is different. So you can take, from maybe mentors or someone who you feel like would know better than you. But again, that's only as an example. You have to actually dig in there and find out what's important to the two of you.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to, communicate that way.
So how did you feel about when? Because I know I talk to my sisters. I talk to my sisters a lot about our marriage. So how did you feel about that? How can we help somebody in our 28 years and help them understand? Okay, this is what we went through. Because I used to run to my sisters and say, she's not doing this, she's not doing that, she's not doing that.
Right.
And then so now what that does is that put her in our. So instead of 2 being married, now it's 3 being married. That put her in the relationship, right?
Right.
You see. So how can we help somebody that's already in that situation, or they're about to get married? How to avoid that situation?
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna answer that question, but I'm gonna need you all to call in. I'm gonna need you to call us at 678-381-1973 so we can get this conversation going on about this communication and how you got to speak to your sisters and what did that do to me, right? Okay, so of course, as you know, I was not happy with that. But I mean, there are things that go on between a married couple that need to stay between the married couple, private, okay? And so what it did when you talk to your sisters, about me, instead of telling me, it of course put me on a defense. It put me on a defense,
Right.
thinking that I always had to defend myself against them because of course they're your sisters, so they're gonna come for you. And I'm like, hey, I understand y'all had that way, but now you with me, so that's the truth about the matter. So yeah, it was hard at first again, and I know like young couples, you really don't understand, but you do that not out of malice, but it's because those people are the people that are in your lives up to the point that you get married. So you feel most safe, most comfortable, most vulnerable with those people, like your siblings, your parents. That's your support group. That's who you go to. So it really is a transition once you get married to understand that, well, these are now conversations I need to be having with my spouse. So I don't think you do it on purpose. It's just that you're not used to it.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But again, like you say, that took us 28 years to be sitting like this. But I remember times where we I would communicate um stuff to my sisters, and then they'll come straight to you and tell you, well, Mark said this, blah 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 blah
Right,
blah,
right.
and then I was trying to be, I was in my, I was upset and trying to vent out
Mhm.
to them, but they went ahead and told you exactly what I said, and that put our relationship um, in a tough spot,
Right.
and me trying to the damage control, trying to come back and say this is what I meant, or this is that, and a lot of time because nobody taught you how to communicate in a relationship, in a marriage, so it's stuff that could have been easily solved
Mm,
if you had talked to each other about it,
right.
but you just didn't know. You didn't know. It's a growth process. Again, it's a growth process. So you didn't really talk about it.
A word that comes to mind when you say that to me is I'm thinking of the word pride, right?
hmm
So sometimes we don't know that word is what encompasses a lot of things we do,
hmm
but it's pride because you want to make, like I said, you want to make sure that you don't just dissolve as your own person in this union, in this
hmm
marriage. You want to, make sure, hey, I'm still me, but we're getting together, but I'm still me. So the pride is that, up to that point, you had a lot of confidence and everything in who you were, as an individual
hmm
and the path of life that you were gonna, achieve.
hmm
And then I did also, right?
hmm
And but then we had to mend the two together. And so without feeling like I had to lose myself or you had to lose yourself, I feel like that's where a lot of the points of contention came in.
Right. And like you say, when you say that, remember we weren't saved.
Right. No, we were not.
We weren't saved.
Right.
We didn't know
Right.
Christ. We didn't know Christ. We weren't saved. So we were basically communicating according to the world system.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now after we got saved,
Mm-hmm.
and then so now our communication, just went to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
So I could remember now after we got saved, the way I was looking at you was totally different, a different view, a different lens than than the years before. I figured it was around about our 10th year, where things began to change and we got saved and knowing Christ and all that. So now I'm looking at you as in helpmate.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Right.
I'm looking at it as in helpmate. So if you have a helpmate, you really have to know how to communicate with the helpmate so the helpmate could help you.
That's true. That's true. And that you mentioned that, I'm thinking back on those, about that 10-year point. And so it's not just the words saying that. So you said you started doing it differently as a helpmate, right? But to those out there who may not understand what that means, I would say to describe it is like you started seeing me as a person that is in your corner, a person to help, And like I said, I could notice your whole demeanor actually changed. Your demeanor, how you would speak to me, not like you were never outright rude or anything to me, but I'm just saying after we got saved and we understood the plan for marriage that God had for us, it allowed us both to kind of like let down our guard, and then it just became easier. That's the way I would describe it.
Right, right. Yeah, I remember it being easier because we what we were doing in the world way, we're communicating. What we were calling communicating was we weren't listening to understand each other. We were listening to reply back.
Right.
Okay. So I was listening to you saying you didn't do the dishes, so I could tell you, well, you didn't do it 3 days ago. Right. So I wasn't listening to understand, okay, if I had done the dishes, I would have put you in a different space. You would have been able to complete this, complete that.
Right.
You see what I mean? So communication, as this group to help someone out there, is okay. You have to listen when you're speaking to your spouse, you're communicating with your spouse. You have to listen to that spouse to understand where they're coming from. Okay, to understand, to have a better idea. Okay, how did this happen, or why? How can we stop this from happening again? Okay. And that's where we need to go tonight. We need to really help you guys out there that are listening to us live. It's like, okay, when you're communicating with your spouse, you need to understand where they're coming from. Okay, before you just start talking. And the Bible says something, in the book of James, the Bible says 1:19, it said, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, right? And slow to anger. Okay, so that's part of communication. That's the biblical way. So we need to be slow to speak, right? Quick to hear. So when somebody's speaking to you, instead of making your defense, now you need to be preparing yourself. Okay, let me hear every word that person is saying. Let me hear the emotions. Let me hear the feelings. Let me hear the words that they're using, because those words will describe how the person feels, right? So I remember the last time we had a good communication. We had
A good way.
we had, I think it was a time of transitioning. It was a time of transitioning for us in our marriage, and that really helped us. I don't know if you remember it, but I remember it vividly that I came from work, I came home, and we sitting down at the table. And I mean, you put the kids away and whatever, went to bed and make sure everything and all that. And we started, and you started, you started. You said you want to talk. You want to talk to me, and I said okay. And then and we sat down. It was 8:00 at night, and we didn't leave that table till 4:00 in the morning. And that was a transition in our marriage. So we talked about, and a lot of things that a lot of you guys out there are married, and you might be in the same position where we used to be 18 years ago. A lot of things that you just take in, you never you never speak them out loud. You know, a lot of things you just brushed off. You know, you never say anything about it. So now it's a build up. It's a build up. You may be doing it as a male, and then your wife may be doing the same thing, but eventually that's not good because eventually it's toxic relationship that could lead to a lot of things, divorce. It could lead to somebody being hurt. You know, so that's why this topic tonight, communication, is very important. Okay, that's why it's very important. And the way I would say for somebody out there that's listening is, just hear the person out. Hear the person out, and then try not to hear the words, but hear the heart. Okay, hear the heart. Because remember, if that person, remember, God created. Let me tell you how important communication is. When God created the world, He spoke it. He spoke you and I into existence. He spoke everything that you and I are using in this earth into existence. So words are important. Words are important. So in a marriage situation, words are very important. You may be hurting somebody by the words that you say, but you don't think so. You just say it. You say, well, I just said it, but words are very important because things are formed through words. Okay. So let's go back to that night that we had that conversation. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff because I was a person that you could vouch for that because I was a person that I didn't speak a lot. I used to listen. I'm a great listener, but I never speak a lot. I used to just listen and listen and listen and listen. Which is a skill. It's a good skill set for business, but in a marriage relationship, you need to be able to verbalize yourself, say how you feel. So you would speak and I would never listen. I would never say anything. I would just take them in. So eventually, the can's going to get full.
Right.
You're going to have to take the top off, take the lid off.
Right.
So
while you were thinking that you were being such a great listener,
right.
What was that doing to you? I was angry. I was very angry because to me, again, we're talking about communication, right? And the ways you would use to communicate with other people. So by you not responding to me, I looked at that as total disrespect. So it made me angry a lot. Right. And I couldn't understand. It didn't make me feel valued as your wife. And like I said, I was also, that made me feel like, well, if you don't value me enough to just even answer what I'm saying to you, then, I need to just live your life horrible in the house. So that's the truth, right? That's
right. This is real talk. This is real talk. This is real marriage. So we're trying to help somebody out there. We opening it up so you guys can see how 28 years of marriage is. It's not. It didn't get there overnight, but there's things that we went through that you could pick some stuff up and say that could help you in your marriage. So she said, like my wife said, she made my life hell, and it was. And what part of that was pride in my side. I'm like, oh, okay, you're gonna make my life hell? Well, I'm gonna make your life hell. So right. Tick for tat. Yep. And that doesn't work in marriage, folks. That doesn't work in marriage. What it does, so we stayed up till 4:00 in the morning, and we talked about. I gave you a laundry list, and you gave me a laundry list. And then I remember, we didn't get anything solved that day.
But you said it was a turning point.
Yeah, it was a turning point. But that night, we didn't come into an agreement or do anything. I just took my list, and you took your list.
Well, but the turning point was that you actually said what you needed to say. So that was the turning point, even though we may not have had a resolution,
Right.
it was the first step to getting things out.
Right. Right. Yeah. Now, I remember, you you thought, and this is how hard it is in marriage. Um, I remember one of the things I used to come home and wanted to have a meal waiting for me on the table, right? And so, but my wife was thinking that, okay, well, you out there traveling and eating all out in these fine restaurants, and I'm here with the kids, and that was it. But see, we never talked about that. But you know, eating out in the restaurant, that's fine. I want a home cooked meal.
Mhm. Mhm.
You see, that was important to me. So that's part of communication. You have to describe, you have to say what's important to you.
Right.
So, but I never
That was
told
with
you
your
that.
home life. You were used to that with your home life.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, but when we talked about it, you say, well, you just out there just enjoying yourself, eating in fine restaurants and this and that. I'm here with the kids, and
Right.
and I'm like, I don't care about the fine restaurants. I just want me some chicken and gravy. you know.
Well, that's a good point. But I want to say to that the reason I felt that way, that describes what I thought a marriage should be as well, right?
Mhm.
So we would have to backtrack a little bit and let the viewing audience know that when we first got together, we both were on a path of career first, and then establishing ourselves, and we just knew we were gonna be this power couple. But then on the way, over the years,
Mhm.
it changed, and we decided that we were going to have a family, have children.
Mhm.
And so, of course, that changed everything.
Right.
But the way I saw it is, it changed it for me, but not for you. So you still, were going out. Your career was advancing. You were doing all these great things.
Mhm.
And although I was happy to be at home with our children, I was very happy to be able to be the one that was the major voice in their life. But I still felt unfulfilled as a woman
Mhm.
because I thought that I had a career out there that I gave up. So that caused a point of contention for us as well.
Mhm.
So you saying that your meal is what was important to you, again, it goes back to, okay, well, I'm taking care of my children, you know? And I mean, it just wasn't top of my priority.
Right. And again, again, that's a great point of communicating.
Mhm.
See, all that stuff is going on in that relationship. None of us know exactly how each other feel.
Right,
Okay.
right, that's true. Hmm.
And that could, um and I knew it was body language going on. It was short words.
Hmm.
Nobody was listening to anybody's feelings or emotions.
Hmm.
So that just kept going, kept dragging on and on and on that night,
Fateful night.
that fateful night that we had a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what. So again, that's why communication is important to a spouse.
Mhm.
So it's always, because as you grow in the marriage, things may have changed. You may be in a career that you say, you know what, I wanna go to a different career,
Right.
or one of the spouses may be thinking that, okay, I don't like where I'm at right now. I want to do
Mhm.
something else,
Mhm.
and maybe because of situation, they're afraid to talk to each other
Right.
about how they're feeling.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
so that could make communication hard in the household. You see. So what we're saying tonight is, when you have these things, is very important. It's very important. You see, because you slow to speak. When your spouse come to you, what I would say to someone out there that's listening, when your spouse come to you, it may be something that you may think that it's like the worst thing that person is saying.
Mhm.
But what I would say is, watch their emotion. Watch their emotion. Because emotion will speak to you. Emotion will get you to understand where the person is. Okay. And then here for the words that they're saying, maybe sometimes they're crying, they're calling out for help. Sometimes they're calling out for help. Sometimes, there's different styles. Sometimes it's just venting. I just want to vent with really nothing. But sometimes I want your help. I need you. I need you to step up. I need you to help me understand this. I need you to help me understand that. So that becomes a clear path where you as a spouse, whoever's doing the communicating, will really need to be understanding and put the human heart and really say, you know what? Okay, my spouse is crying out for help now. I need to help him. Because those are very important, because I remember times where when the time came for me to make a decision to leave corporate America and to go into ministry full time, it was hard. I was struggling with that and knowing, okay, how am I going to address this to my spouse? Because something new, and it's something that's going to be a change. It's going to be a change on the family structure and the family dynamic, on the finances, and everything. It's going to affect not just me. It's going to affect the wife, the children, everything else. So that needs to be a good, that needs to be a way of how we communicate that. But because we were just learning, it was kind of hard to say, okay, how are you going to receive this thing? Are you going to see the emotion? Are you going to see the passion? Are you going to see, the calling? Are you going to see all that? You see? So that's what we're doing tonight, is trying to help somebody, a person that's already, especially a person that's been married already, that's already in a relationship, maybe for 7, 10, 15 years. You think you're communicating, but you're not, because what you're doing is the intent is to rebuttal. You see, as soon as your spouse come and want to speak to you, your whole intention is, I want to rebuttal. No, I didn't do that. Instead of trying to understand what they're trying to say. So how can we help somebody tonight? Because I really feel that there are people out there watching that not newlywed, but people that's been in marriages for 10, 15 years, 20 years, just existing. They have a business relationship, but not an emotional marriage. So how can we help somebody tonight?
Well, you said a bunch of things there, a lot of things. But one thing that I want to comment on is when you said, like, you maybe going through something, in your own individual self, but then you didn't know how you would bring that to me. You didn't know how I was going to react or what I was going to feel. And right now, we're about to go biblical. So what I'm going to say is, you didn't know those things. It was scary for you, because like you said, it was going to be a big step, a big life change, right? But what you didn't know is that when you were ready to make that switch, God had already been working on me and us as a family to help us to be able to accept and understand that this was something that you had to do, because it's part of your destiny. It's something that you have to achieve for God. So now that takes all of our desires that we would have for our own self, our own plans for our own life, and we would have to put it aside, because we know that doing God's will is the most important thing. And then when we make Him first, He takes care of us and makes us first. Right. So, like, you probably spent more time agonizing on that decision than you needed to. That's true. And again, it goes back to mindset, and thoughts, and being able to verbalize how you really feel. So we know how God feels about families, and what we know now that we didn't know then is that He calls you, He calls me, and then He calls our entire family. So now we know that through learning and teaching. But back in those days, it was a hard thing to to get through. Right. because, there were challenges because one day the family's going to be, the dynamic's going to change. Standard of, so I can see in a how it could have been difficult to say, well, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do now, and not, especially because you're the head of the family.
Right.
And, you're the provider.
Right.
So, I mean, I can definitely understand that. So, how do you, what do you think the outcome was when you finally said that? When you were honest about what you were thinking?
I mean, it was good, but the thing, what I was saying is, how you approach, you deliver the message, how you deliver the message. How would I come and say, you know what, this is how, because remember, words create things. Okay. So when you put those words out there, you're creating something, you're creating an atmosphere. So it's like, okay, what kind of words am I going to use? Okay. To communicate, to verbalize this thing that I'm feeling inside, you see that. And then, so I'm not sure where you are, not sure where you are, because again, as we going through, we really not, we're just passing each other, because we had a lot of that, a lot of passing each other along the way. Hey, I get up, go and do my thing, come back home and do your thing, and you take care of the children and say hi, and that's a lot of people out there that's operating like this.
Right.
A lot of people just passing each other, but then when you see, that's why you hear people say, well, now the kids are gone, well,
we don't know each other,
we don't have anything in common.
Right.
You see, and it's not that you have anything in common, because remember, you have to design the marriage.
Right.
You have to design the communication. You have to design the things that makes the marriage works.
Right.
See, it's not just going to show up by itself. And when we say design, not designing, a lot of people use social media, they use TV, they use all this stuff. No. Designing according to what did we, one thing that we talk about, you and I, we always go back to when you were 16, when we were 19, the conversation that we used to have.
Right.
What did we used to talk about? What did we say back then that the way we saw our marriage, our life 80 years from now? You see? And that's what people have to do. They have to go back to start communicating those things that they talked about when they were dating. Right.
That's what got you together
Right.
in the first place.
Right. Go back to those things, and then start putting those things together and start saying, okay, you know what? This is what we used to do.
Yeah.
This is what, even though now the kids are gone, or they they're getting older, but we said we were going to do this.
Right.
And then when the kids came, and we said we're going to wait after they leave to do it.
Right.
So now they left. Now you say we don't have anything in common.
Right.
You see, but the whole thing is because of lack of communication. It's because you have not gone back to communicate the ideas that we talked about in the past. So I have one scripture, that says, Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft the wrath, but harsh word. You see, and I brought that scripture up because a lot of times back in our communication trials, we used to say stuff that used to get us into deeper. Right. Because you figured if I say it try to hurt you, that will make me feel better.
Right. And what a mistake that was, right? Yeah.
And one of the thing is because, like you said, we didn't feel that we were in each other's corner.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on today. Somebody out there, some couples out there, you know, they they feel like they're in competition with each other. You see, they feel like they're in competition with each other when they're supposed to be one. They're supposed to be in each other's corner. So thinking like that, that thought process will always shut down communication. Shut down communication.
I think a lot of people characterize that as, you know, they say this loosen up, throw this friend out like we were friends, you know, friends before we get together.
Mm-hmm.
You think about what do you do with a friend, like somebody you think is your friend, your ride or die. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you want you know they're in your no matter what.
Right.
There for you. It's no going through some go through the call, right? You're supposed to,
Right.
but you know it has to go. You're in the show. So there are girls, you know, there's
Mm-hmm.
people that they call friends, but you don't necessarily think of your spouse as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, you know, I've been asked that question before, like, you know, who you think your friend is, or do you think your spouse is your friend? Do you want to, like, be working with your spouse? That's a good question. And that all goes to say, do you enjoy spending time with your spouse, right? So it definitely has to be developed, you know, the friendship there. I
Right.
think you can have a friendship, you know, but you have to work on it. You have to, like when you say you have a friend, you want your friend to be happy.
Right.
You listen to your friend. You know, you're not going to say anything to the left to your friend 'cause you don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, you always gonna you wanting the best for them, looking
Right.
out for them.
Right.
So that's what I would say, you know, for something like that.
Yeah. So a friend is like you say, but again, the Bible say a friend is closer than than a brother, right? So a friend's supposed to be closer, but then what we do is we don't. As soon as we get married, it may start out as a friendship, but as soon as you get married, then what happens is everybody gets into their corner, you know. And the reason is because we don't understand that biblically marriage the way it's supposed to be. When you look at the world's way is competition. Like we competing against each other instead of become a unity, becoming one. You look at the world's way is
All right, so you know you said some great key points there. Right now we're gonna take a little different direction. We got some questions from the audience. I'm gonna read this question
Okay.
and see what we're gonna answer.
okay.
All right. So when you're in a relationship between each other can be so emotionally draining, how do you manage to stay?
That's a good question. So you're in a relationship. So that person said they're in a relationship with each other, with a boyfriend, girlfriend, or is it a marriage relationship?
Well, let's say marriage because it's marriage by design. So
Okay.
we'll take marriage.
Okay.
Okay.
So they say it's emotionally draining, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then what was the end of it?
So when a relationship between each other can be so emotionally draining, how do you manage to stay in it?
Okay. Well, again, you have to look back within. Okay. See, when you start, you got to go in. When you go in, then you figure out, okay, what was the plan? What was the stuff that we talked about that got us into the relationship? You see. Then once you start talking about the things that brought you two together, then that will help you remove the emotion. So emotion, you could be emotionally drained from different aspects. Okay, so we have to understand what are those aspects are that's emotionally draining the relationship. But I would say to keep the relationship strong, you always have to go back to the beginning. Okay, you always have to go back and say, okay, what did we when I saw you and you saw me, what was the thing that drove us together? Okay, that's how you keep that relationship going. Okay, so
Well, that's good. So I have another question. And the next question is, when did you learn to trust your spouse more than your family and friends? Hmm,
that's a good one. That's a good one.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
That took that took some time. That took some time because remember, um, the trust you what happened you trust your friends and your family because it's a relationship that was there longer than you and your spouse. So criticism you could do criticism. You see, you could the family your family member could criticize you and you'll be fine with it. But if your spouse criticizes you, now you get defensive. Okay, so it will take, let's say you take cooking. So if you cook for your spouse, and then maybe you're learning how to cook, and then so you put your heart out to do it, and then your spouse comes home and criticizes that. You see, so that right there, it affects the trust that you have that she has for you about cooking
Right.
or cleaning or anything. You see what I mean? So you always go back to your family because they've criticized you, so it's a joke. But your spouse now, as soon as that person says something that's ordinary, not ordinary to what you want to hear, he's gonna put a big block, a big emotional block, and those things sometimes take time to get over. Take time to get over.
Well, I would add to that
Hmm.
that I think um, when you learn to trust your spouse more than the relationship that with your family that you're used
Hmm.
to is it's going to be some sort of situation that happens. And it can be one situation or it can be a compilation of situations, right? But what I think is when you see how your spouse reacts to it, if he or she um, is leaning towards being your advocate for you in front of their family.
Okay.
See, because that's what the spouse is looking for.
Hmm.
So when you're able to see that, now you begin to think, okay, this person is really in my family. Because if you're gonna be willing to risk that relationship with the family to defend me,
Hmm. Hmm.
then I know you're serious about this. Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right, but that's how it's supposed to be anyway.
right, but it's not though, right?
Right.
At first.
Not at first. Some people may be in there now and it's still not. Again, it's because different view of marriage. Like I said, we don't have a book that says this is how marriage is supposed to be.
Right.
So different views of marriage will alienate, you know, um, people, from their spouses. Even to uh, finances. A whole bunch of different things that we will touch on throughout the show that people, because it keeps them separate, but God says, when we become together we're becoming one,
Right.
and that's the key that we have to get to that unity. How do we become one? Because since woman was taken out of you, your wife was taken out of you, so there's a missing piece that you have that she has that
Right.
you need. And that's the whole thing of Marriage by Design. The whole premise of the show is trying to get you to understand that there's that piece of your spouse that you need, man. I'm talking to the men out there, the men that you need that piece. Okay, she's the missing piece that you need. She's the wisdom that you need. She's so you can't go alone. That's why you have to learn in communication. You have to move away. The Bible says the man leave his mother and father and becoming one with his spouse. And I made the mistake that going back to my family, because again, like I said, I wasn't saved then. I really didn't understand it. But now, once I got saved and I knew Christ, now my marriage became, a thing of beauty. I cherish my wife, and I understand she has to help me. I understand that, if I have to make a decision, no matter what it is, that I have to bring her into it because she may have an input. She may see something that I don't see. She may something that I don't see, and that's valuing her. And that's how you get to that 28 years. That's how you get to that 56 years. I'm doubling it now.
Right.
That's how you get to that. That's how you get to that 56 years. You see what I mean? So
Pastor Hicks, we got one more question I'm going to give, okay? And this one seems like it's to me. It says, Pastor, as a woman, how did you keep yourself from seeing the relationship as unbalanced? So, I would say it took many years for me to be able to see us as equals. It's like you said, it became after we got saved and started together the purpose and how God.
right. But we stand out there, there's people out there that really needs help in their marriage. We are, as you know, we are pastors. I'm the senior pastor of Faith and Motion Ministry. We're located in Snellville, Georgia. Pastor, if you need help with your marriage, email us and call us so that we may be able to help you. Okay. This is a marriage by design. The reason we have plenty of ammunition, plenty of wounds from our 28 years that we could share with you in any different ways, any different categories in where you are right now. We can help you. We can help you. So again, we're Faith and Motion Ministries located in Snellville, Georgia. Call us and we'll get back with you. We want to help you. Because you know what? Because God, when you begin to walk into marriage the way God wants you to walk into marriage, you will experience something in your life that is unexplainable.
You've been watching Marriage by Design with Pastor and Co-Pastor Narcissus. Join us for more episodes that will help you experience God's design for your marriage. For more great content, check out YouTube Faith in Motion Ministries.